we're not here to make it money, we're here to compete as well. This squad, with the power they have on their day, they can do anything they want.
Hello and welcome to the Glassgirls network with me, Jonathan. Special guest today, Richard. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing, mate?
Hi, fine, thanks.
Just here after a game, women's football, fantastic game, winning League 3-0. Really enjoyable game. Just quickly discuss our thoughts on that, how important that win was.
Yeah, really important. I think going into 2 games now in the next week, Wednesday night and Sunday, I think it was important to get 3 points on the board from the first of those 3 games.
Yeah.
Leek were a really, really difficult team to break down. Certainly in the first half, they caused us a few problems, and we found it hard to break them down. Created a few chances, but didn't take them until I've forgotten who scored the first goal now.
Lil Beth.
Lil put
yeah.
us ahead. Good goal. And then second half, Lindsay and Neve scored. A pretty dominant second half. Probably should have had more goals, but good game, really good game, and a good crowd as well.
Yeah, it's great to see us averaging between around about a 200 mark, which is great, and I'm sure we'll discuss the reason for that through this video. I just wanted to do something slightly different today. I wanted to talk to yourself a bit about memories, more along the lines of the Andy Fisher era. Obviously, you've been a Stourbridge fan for how many years?
Since my dad brought me down here in the pushchair, longer than I care to remember, but obviously for most of that time we've only had a men's team until the last 10 years or so. So yes, club's been in my blood for a long time.
Brilliant, yeah. And I remember my first day here, you saw me in the crowd and you came over and welcomed me, and that's a different subject, but I appreciate everything that you've done for me and getting me involved, and now obviously I can help get other people involved as well. But I do just want to ask you a little bit about the Andy Fisher era, what he's done for the club, moving this team from tier 6, tier 7 to tier 3 contenders at least. So just talk to us about your early memories and when Andy Fisher took over.
Yeah, it was summer of 2016 when Andy Pountney, the chairman, gave me a ring and he said we've appointed a new manager because Keith Merrick had stepped down after a long time in charge of the team, and Keith had taken the team to 3 promotions in the Birmingham County League, so he'd done his bit by far. And Andy said to me, give Andy a ring, have a chat with him, see if we can put a story on the website, introduce the new manager. I think my first conversation with Andy was one evening at home. I picked the phone up and had a chat with him. It struck me straight away that this was a guy who wasn't doing it for a laugh or just to mess around. This was somebody who was pretty serious about his football and about women's football, and certainly wasn't doing it as a second best to the men's game or anything like that. This was a guy who wanted to take the club places, had ambition, knew what he wanted to do, and you could see that or hear that straight away in his voice. So
would you say that's potentially the reason why Bullingham and Pountney got him involved, because they wanted to obviously not just progress the team, but his ambition, and is that kind of when the investment started, not financially, but the amount of interest in the women's game?
I think possibly not. I think maybe Andy Pountney and Andy Bullingham would tell you they didn't know what they were taking on when they appointed Andy. I think they thought he was a good manager who could progress the team on and off the pitch, progress the club in women's football. But we didn't have the infrastructure then in terms of the junior teams that we do now, and the club was wanting to push the women's team forward, certainly, but we hadn't got to the stage where we were putting in the kind of investment that's gone in. And I don't just mean money when I talk about investment, I talk about people. And I mean just attitude, the right attitude to women's football. I don't think the club had got to that stage yet. I think Andy Fisher was ahead of the club in that respect, but it's largely through his vision and his pushing that we've got to where we are now, but maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit there.
No, that's great, because I wanted to kind of ask a little bit about this. Was it Andy Fisher who kind of liaised with Andy Bullingham and Pountney to turn around and say, look, this is the kind of structure that we need, or was it the other way around? Was it Bullingham and Pountney that were saying to Andy, we need to be like this, or 50-50?
I don't know, if I'm honest with you. I'll leave those conversations to the guys who know what they're talking about. I do think that we were a tier 6 club at the time. We'd just been promoted to tier 6 when Andy came in, if I'm right. I could be wrong.
Was in the article that you showed me when you sent it to me.
We came into that league and we were middling in that league probably for 3 or 4 seasons. I remember the one game, particularly down at Kidderminster. Andy will remember this game, and I think Lammy talked about it at the end of season 2 in the video she did, that we lost 3-2 to Kiddie, and that season we finished 4th in the league, behind Sedgley and Gornall. Might have just been Gornall in those days. and Solihull United and Kiddie.
Yeah.
And we lost all 6 matches against those 3 teams. We beat everybody else, so we were 4th on merit. But we lost all those games by 1 goal.
Okay.
We were really, really close, but we weren't that close, obviously, if we lost every game.
Yeah.
But we played down at Kiddie, and I think we were 1-0 up, and we were 2-1 up. Stacey Barbaccia scored a goal from a long way out.
Okay.
And Amber was playing for Kiddie at the time, and she was a real threat in midfield. She's such a good player.
Yeah.
And they scored late in the game, and then again right at the end of the game to win it 3-2. And it was really frustrating. And again, if I remember rightly, the dugouts at Kiddie, at Cosy, in those days were on the opposite side of the pitch from where the players, where the spectators stand.
Okay.
And all you could see and hear all game was Andy Fisher on the other side of the pitch. Whether we were ahead or whether we were behind or level,
Yeah.
just wanting more from his team, just demanding more from his team. And you could see that attitude in Andy, that it wasn't messing around, that he was serious about it. And I think there was going to come a time where Andy was going to challenge the board and say, we can push this forward, and you've got to match this, you've got to back us, or I'll go and do it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And what the telling thing is that Andy went to the board and the board backed it.
Yeah.
And I think that's credit to the guys, Andy Fisher, to Andy Pountney and Andy Bullingham behind the scenes, that they've pushed it themselves.
Yeah, and you can see that even like at the games now, you know, the chairman is here, and if Andy Patton isn't here, Bullingham's here, and they've got so much passion with the women's team. You know, you hear it, and it's great to see from a women's football fan, not just a Stourbridge fan, a women's football fan. It's great to hear that, because you hear so many stories, no matter what league that you're in, what team you're in, where chairman don't back the team, which is. You know.
I think that's happening less and less. I think more and more teams now are realising that it's the right thing to do, and that it's a good thing to do, and that it can work for you as well. It's not just ticking a box.
Exactly.
It's something that can work for clubs.
Yeah. You mentioned Kiddie Minister there. When do you think the changing of the guard, when did it kind of go from Kiddie Minister being the best women's team to all of a sudden we overtaking them, and what kind of stage do you think that was at?
I think that was a process, if you like, and Kidderminster still have huge potential as a club. Yeah. You know, they had a huge crowd at Agborough the other week, and if they can get it right, you know, they're a solid club. They've got good facilities, and if they can get it right, they've got huge potential as a women's club, as so many others around this area have. I think, you know, you can say we're leading the way, but that doesn't mean other clubs cannot catch us up, and I hope they do. Yeah. I hope the game as a whole thrives around here. But I think we played in the year 2019-2020 season, we played Kiddie early on in the season at Hingley's, and we won 4-1, and I think that was significant. That was the first time I think that we'd beaten Kiddie. We'd had some near misses, and that was the season we went on to be unbeaten before COVID cancelled the season. And other than that game, Kiddie were as well. We were very, very well matched, but that result probably, we'd still got to play them away in the league. Yeah. The season was cancelled, but that result probably was the time when you thought, well, we're pushing on there.
Okay. What other kind of results stand out in Andy's era?
I think when we went to Wolves in the County Cup, okay, we didn't win, but they were Tier 4 and top of Tier 4 at the time. That was later on in that season, before COVID cancelled the season. We got a 1-1 draw, which wasn't expected. Danny Ranger put us ahead in the first half, but we were under the cosh a lot of the game. Yeah. And I think, again, you talk about progression and you talk about what we're going to do as a club. You look at the team that played that day. We had Molly May Summers, a 17-year-old up front, who really, really worked her socks off against that Wolves team. Players of much greater sort of pedigree than her, with every respect. We had Lou Butcher and Macy at the back, 2 teenagers in central defence. Again, did everything against that Wolves team that day. And we had no right really to get a draw out of that game at Castlecroft. And we played so well. I took it to penalties and lost on penalties. But that was, and the other thing about that game was the crowd was 500. Well, Wolves were averaging about 150 in the league at that time, so people had come to watch Stourbridge's team play that day. People were probably watching us for the first time, and that was probably the first time that we put ourselves in the club's support's consciousness to a big degree. Yeah. So it was important that we played well. Maybe not necessarily get a result because we weren't expected to, but it was important that we played well, and we did. That day, we really, really played well.
In recent history, I mean, that kind of just, what you said there kind of just reminds me of the Sheffield United game we lost, but the fact that we played a championship side, so still 2 or 3 leagues, you know, difference, but we gave a good account of ourselves.
Yeah, the cups are your chances to do that, because they're the games where you're playing good opposition. Yeah. Sometimes it's opposition that your fans have heard of, because with all due respect, a lot of people haven't heard of Kingfisher or Sedgley and Gorn, or not to be rude to those teams, but people look for familiar names.
Yeah.
We played Peterborough and Lincoln down here this season and had decent crowds, and I think part of that is the familiar name of the opposition.
You're talking about Wolves. When I try and talk to my women's football friends across the country, I always try and price Stourbridge up to the point where you got Birmingham and Villa in our area, then you got Albion and Wolves, and
Boldmere. Don't forget
and Boldmere now. Obviously now it's Boldmere up there, but now they're bottom of that tier. Would you say that we're pushing to be that next level up?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I think we're mad, given the stage that we've got to now and the way the last few seasons have come, not to want to do that.
Yeah.
And I know Andy does.
Yeah.
I think we've got. You look at tier 3 and you look at, okay, you've got Wolves, you've got Nottingham Forest, you've got Derby County, big clubs on and off the pitch, really clubs that if we're competing with those clubs, crikey, that's something to aim for. But you've also got Sheffield were in that division last season. You've got Brighouse in that division. You've got clubs like Durham playing in tier 2. So there's no reason why we cannot compete with those clubs.
Yeah.
We've got the infrastructure that can compete with clubs like that if they can compete at that level.
When I first started following Stourbridge women's football team, which was, well, I say following, like properly following, it was about 14 months ago, and I had a look at Solihull Moors, just to kind of see, because they were a local team. I used to work in Solihull at the time, so I kind of like looked at how far away were we to Solihull Moors, and at that point we just got promoted to tier 5. They was an established, tier 4 team, and now we're looking at, 14 months on. We can say that we're level, pretty much. Some might say we're behind, some might say that we're ahead.
I think level's about fair.
Yeah.
We haven't played them yet.
Exactly.
So reserve judgment on where they're at, and I don't know much about Solihull's infrastructure behind the scenes, so it wouldn't be fair for me to comment on that.
It's just nice to see that we are making that progression, and it's great to see.
Yeah.
One other game that you did mention before we went on camera, Crusaders, was it?
Yeah, that was. It's hard to believe that was nearly 2 years ago now. Down here at the War Memorial. We didn't play so many games at the War Memorial in those days, but FA Cup ties we did, because we always had to have the designated ground for the FA Cup. And we'd already won 4 matches, I think, to reach that stage. We'd beaten Port Vale and Worley at home, and then we went to Knoll and won, and we went to Worcester City and won, who were tier 5 and we were tier 6 at the time. And then we got Crusaders at home, who were another tier 5 team. We'd beaten them in the County Cup the previous season, 3-0 down here on a dark, wet, horrible afternoon. The cup tie was a different story. Ruby Meeson put us ahead in the first half with her knee. Smashing goal it was. Brilliant goal, Ruby, if you're watching.
Scored 1 or 2 today as well for the Vezzis.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, got a couple today for the reserves, which is good to see. But after that, it was a real struggle, and there were stages in the second half when Crusaders were coming on. They had a really good chance to go put it over the bar. And it was a real tussle, and there was a crowd of about 250 in, which was probably the biggest crowd we had to see the women's team at that time, and it felt like a proper game. Some of the games down at Hingley's or some of the league matches we played down here, when you've got small crowds in, they didn't have the feel of a proper atmosphere. This game really did, and as the game went on and we were still 1-0 up, and it was tight, it was really tight and tense, and you could feel the crowd getting behind the team, and you could feel the team responding.
Okay.
And we scored a second goal, I think 4 minutes to go. Alex put the ball through to Holly Summers, and Holly's cross, Lammy turned it in at the near post. And there was a proper eruption in the crowd. And you feel that go, you feel the hairs on the back of your neck. It's a proper moment, a proper football moment. You don't often get those when you've got a small crowd. But that was a real feeling. And then Courtney hit a brilliant goal in added time to make it 3-0, which was a bit flattering, I think, on the day. But we deserved the win. But it was, like I say, a proper occasion. I think that marked, and also it was, I think we all knew that was the last game before we were going into another lockdown, as it happened at the time. And I think it was important we signed off. There was it was a good way. Everybody knew we wouldn't play again. We had to play the Wolves Cup tie, which was behind closed doors, because we got through against Crusaders. And we lost 3-0 at Castlecroft, not at Castlecroft, at Tettenhall, their training ground, and that was a bit of a damp squib of the day. It chucked it down with rain. But the Crusaders game was it marked a moment, I think, for this team and for the club. And it was a shame there and then we couldn't build on it because of everything shutting down again. That was a really important game.
But we did hit the ground running again after COVID break, because we got promoted, and
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's fantastic to see. And you speak about the crowd erupting there as well. This is something that I think most football fans like to hear. You know, when there's a goal that's scored, and you know, Andy's the first one to cheer. He cheers the loudest when the score is.
Yeah.
He screams the loudest.
I think we've had it again today. Actually, you look at the second half today when we're 1-0 up. First half's been tight, and second half we've missed a few chances early in the second half, and it's still 1-0. You know, people are starting to get edgy.
Yeah.
And then we have that incident. Was the ball over the line? Wasn't it over the line? Okay, wasn't given. And don't forget, 3 weeks ago against Peterborough here, they thought they got the ball. It swings and roundabouts.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, and then Lindsay scored, and that was another moment.
Yeah.
You could feel, you could see the celebrations on the pitch. You could feel the crowd.
Yeah, and that's what I love
the
as well.
The relief and the noise in the crowd when that one went in.
Yeah.
So another one of those moments today.
When Lil scored today, just bringing it back to Andy, when Lil scored today, when the players were coming back, as soon as we kicked off, it come from the coaches. The coach was there saying, "Come on, pressure, let's get the ball back."
Yeah.
I think he said, "Ellen Alex or Ellen Lil win that ball back," and that obviously got us going in the fans. And I think that's just something else that I would like to shout out about Andy. Obviously, everything that goes on behind the scenes, all the tactics, all that kind of stuff. You know, I never know that amount of detail, but in the stands, there's nothing better than hearing. It doesn't have to be the manager; it could be the head coach, it could be any of the coaches. But hearing the bench shout and be as vocal as they are really gets you up and going, because you want to back the managers. You know, you want to cheer for them, and you know, Andy's the best at that, isn't he? You know, being vocal on the touch line.
It's always encouragement from the sidelines. I think
Absolutely,
that's important. I think the other game that I think everybody talks about, obviously for obvious reasons, is the Derby match.
Okay.
But before that, it's a year ago tomorrow since we lost 3-0 home to Sutton Coldfield, when Sophie Levick scored a hat-trick, which nobody ever lets her forget about. 3 good goals as well, 3 really good goals. And that game against Sutton, I think, was a wake-up. And Andy and Mike will tell you that. It was a wake-up for them as coaches. It was a bit of a wake-up for the team. I don't think we played badly on the day, but we couldn't put the ball in the net, and we gave away 3 reasonably sloppy goals.
Start of the season, obviously, we lost against Sheffield. Can you see like similarities there, like both getting promoted against rivals?
Similarities and differences. I don't think we played very well against Sheffield, and you know, it's for Andy and Mike to say, but I don't think it was the real Stourbridge. I think we were a little bit nervy. We perhaps slightly altered our game plan, thinking we had to, because we're now playing at this level, and we ought to do things like, we couldn't go gung ho as we've done a lot of the time in tier 5 or 6, and I think we sort of spoiled our own chances a little bit. But you learn from these things, don't you? Andy and Mike are learning all the time, I'm sure they'll tell you that.
Definitely, yeah.
But going back to the Derby match, you know, the lessons we learned from Sutton, Mike has always said we wouldn't have won the Derby game if it wasn't for losing to Sutton, because it made us think about the way you approach games like that against stronger teams, better teams. But that day was, you know, we went a goal down inside 2 minutes, and it was a horrible goal to concede straight from a corner. The guts the team showed that day. Nobody ever took a backward step. Okay, we defended a lot. But the effort that everybody put in to make that work. And I think when we went 2-1 up, and you think this can't happen. And then you concede a goal midway through the second half, and you got the pressure coming on you and coming.
Amy made some good saves.
Amy did, yes, some really good saves. She made one from Precious Hamilton near the end, and I've timed it. It was 90 seconds, maybe 91 seconds between that save and the Courtney putting the ball in the net at the other end. And that's 2 minutes that I think transformed this club's fortunes, because if we'd lost that game 3-2, okay, brave effort, back to the league. And we probably would have gone on and won the league the way it was, but that changed everything, because then you've got the Cambridge match, then you've got the Sheffield match down here, which is a crowd of 400, another chance to put ourselves on the map. That Derby game, it changed everything. It changed the mentality, it changed the idea of what we could achieve. I think it brought the team and the supporters and everybody closer together. Special day, really special 100%.
Day. There's some highlights on our playlist, so if you go to our playlist, scroll down, that Derby game is actually on there. It's on the Rams TV channel, so if you just go to our playlist, you can find it.
Definitely worth watching.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant, and cool. It had to be the skipper, it had to be from the halfway line, lobbing the goalkeeper, the celebration, absolutely brilliant. There was one other game last season that was potentially a turning point, or I don't know what you would call it really, but I don't know if I would call it a turning point, but Lichfield winning 7-0.
Yeah, I think there was something about that day. Again, that one's on YouTube. I'm sure John can put a link up for that one.
Yeah.
But it was right near the end of the season, obviously, down here. Lichfield was still in the contention for the title themselves. If they'd won the game that day, things could have been very different. Sutton, obviously, was still in contention. And I think there were a lot of nerves that day coming into the match, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
You know, we'd only won 1-0 at Lichfield. They'd been churning out the results all season, as had Sutton, as had we. I think they'd lost to Kiddie a couple of weeks before, which put a bit of a spanner in their works, but they were still in contention, and we came out and blitzed them. It was 4-0 at half time, was it? Yeah, 4-0 at half time.
Yeah.
And we didn't let up, and I think that was. We only needed one more win after that match all of a sudden, because Sutton lost the same day.
Yeah.
And I think that was the point. Realistically, we knew, nobody would admit it, but realistically we knew we got 3 games. We only needed one more win.
Yeah.
And it was, there was no sign of nerves from the players on the pitch. They just went out and did their job, and I think that's testimony to them and to Mike and Andy, the coaching staff, and Harry as well. You know, everybody who works behind the scenes, and Beachy as well with Amy at the time. The work they put in to prepare the players and to be ready that day, on and off the pitch, mentally, physically, footballing wise. That was another day where we went up another level.
It's a fantastic end to the season for a Stourbridge fan, because it just seemed that we kept on going on and on and on, not only unbeaten but winning game after game after game in the league. Whereas Lichfield and Sutton eventually did just drop away a little bit. You know, they couldn't maintain what they started, whereas we could.
And again, I think that's harsh. It's a tough season. They were both Sutton were involved in cups as well, and it's a long season. Now, we ended up playing 35 games. We played till the end of May. And okay, apart from one midweek game, it's only Sundays, you know, but it's every Sunday. I think we only had 2 Sundays off in the whole season. You know? And that, you ask a lot of commitment from the players to do that. 2 nights of training a week, and strength and conditioning sessions as well. You ask them to look after themselves, do a bit of work off the pitch, away from the club as well. We ask, Andy and Mike ask a lot of the players, and every one of them commits, and they're absolutely fantastic. I can't speak highly enough of them.
But the rewards were there for them. I mean, I remember when it got to about 6 games to go, when it was in our hands, when we kind of counted down 6 games to go, 5 games, and that's dreadful to do. Obviously, 1 game at a time, but if you can tick it off, but like the amount of pressure that must have been
when
under.
you looked at our fixture list at the end of the season, we got Crusaders, we got Lichfield, we got Sutton, we got Kiddie, all teams in the top half of the table, all tough games. And you looked at that fixture list, and I look at the fixture list every week, and I think, where are we going to get another win? Because, you know, the football fans' mentality, you always look on the negative side. But they were a tough bunch of fixtures. They came through them really, really well.
Just before we wrap up, just I was just bring you back to Andy Fisher then. It's just like 1 or 2 or 3 things that you could kind of pinpoint on. You know, what's Andy brought like to this club to help it elevate to that next level? I'm sorry I put you on the spot here, but it's something that we think about, I'm sure.
I think if Andy feels that he wants something that will improve the team and improve the club, he will go and ask for it. He won't. His mentality is not to settle for what we've got. His mentality is always to push on, always to ask for more, whether it's more from the players, whether it's more from the club. And maybe the answer won't always be yes, but you know, he will ask, he will demand more. And he'll demand, you know, we have conversations, he'll demand more from me in terms of what I'm doing. He always demands better. But however good you are, he always wants better. And him and Mike as a partnership, Mike's work, you know, I can't say too much about that, you know, what Mike does for the club. With the academy, with the first team, his work behind the scenes easily goes unnoticed as a coach.
We need to speak to Mike, get Mike on a podcast, because what Mike does.
You need to set an hour or 2 aside.
Exactly.
To talk to Mike, definitely.
Week in the life of Mike Harris, I think we need to do, because it's the amount of work that he puts in on different levels is fantastic. Look,
but it's a team effort. The whole team.
100%. Everyone's got a role to play, haven't they? And we have got the best in class in, you know, everything that we do. That from an outsider looking in, it looks like, you know, we've got some of the best coaches, we've brought in some of the best players, we've brought in, you know, we've got like a fantastic social media person, we've got some fantastic fans out there. You know, even Kieran on the music system today was fantastic as well. So yeah, it's great. You know, great photographer as well in Anthony Dunn. It does look like that we've got a great team here that's bringing Stourbridge up.
And everybody wants the same thing. Everybody's pushing the same way.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like you say, isn't it? Not just settling for what we've got. We keep on wanting more.
Yeah.
Look, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Come back on in a month or two, whenever you want to. We can discuss a few more games here. But no, thank you very much. I really appreciate this, and I'm sure a few of the viewers will as well. So that's great. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Cheers, John.
Thank you, mate. Bye bye.